Some people are starting to say that Donald Trump could become a dictator. Some people are starting to say that Donald Trump could effectively institute martial law, i.e., the suspension of the writ of habeas corpus. If you want to hear my true uncensored thoughts, the link is going to be down in the description. This is YouTube friendly video for those of you that just want to keep scrolling on YouTube. But at the end of the day, what's really happening? How is this affecting us, and what can we expect to see in the future? And is this even possible? Right now, Donald Trump is trying to get rid of the illegal aliens by using the 1798 Alien Enemies Act, which allows him to deport enemies of the state, therefore looking at the illegal aliens here as enemies of the state. So therefore, under the Alien Enemies Act, he gets to deport them. But the thing is, in the Constitution, under the Fifth Amendment, and I think it's also written and codified in multiple parts of the law, everyone is entitled to the right of due process. What is due process? That means you've got to be able to provide evidence on your side to prove your claim. They've got to provide evidence on their side to decide their claim. And then your judge, who's a referee, gets to look at the facts and weigh it out and make a decision based upon judicial precedence. That is the basic foundation of due process. By suspending the writ of habeas corpus, you get rid of due process, and it now becomes military rule. What we like to call martial law, but is technically called the suspension of the writ of habeas corpus. Okay, so because he is violating that, the Supreme Court is stopping him, because everybody deserves the right to due process. The thing about the Bill of Rights is it doesn't just apply to Americans, because these unalienable rights are given to you by your creator at birth, and nobody can infringe on them. And these are just the ones that they enumerated, that there are many more. It even says so in the preamble. So this applies to all of God's creation. It does not apply to just Americans. So for those of you saying, oh, well, that only should apply to Americans, well, you're part of the problem, because that's exactly what is creating the situation to begin with, because you're buying into the rhetoric on either side. Okay, both sides are trying to create hysteria, because it's going to lead to a civil war eventually. Because some people are trying to fight back on judicial precedents and fight back based upon the trajectory that the country's been on, and some are trying to restore it, and some are trying to do other things about it. But the thing is, the only way that Donald Trump can institute the suspension of habeas corpus is under an invasion or time of war. And so the only way he can do that is to label these illegal aliens as invaders. And he's been doing this since he left office, and he's been trying. And so when he got here, we now know that he's already got that in his mind. This is an invasion, which gives me the right to enforce or to suspend the right of habeas corpus. Abraham Lincoln did it. I can do it. You see how there's a justification, and how he's trying to spin it. This was not what the suspension of habeas corpus was meant for. It was meant for in a very rare and narrow instance. It was not meant to be used like this. This is why Abraham Lincoln has a huge blemish on his record. Unfortunately, before he could reinstitute the habeas corpus, if I remember history correctly, he was assassinated, which therefore allowed his predecessor to take over and do what he wanted to do on behalf of other people. And that's a whole nother story. But the suspension of habeas corpus, i.e. martial law, is not something that we should be going full steam in. Because here's the thing, even in Nazi Germany, at first they came for this group and you say nothing. And then they say, come for this group, and then you say nothing. And then they come for this group, and then they say nothing, until finally they come for you, and there's no one left to say anything. And this is the path that we are on, cause and effect. Because what he is trying to do is to essentially suspend the Constitution, the very thing he wanted to protect, in the name of getting these illegal aliens out. Now, what would prompt him to do that? With the constant, and he's already starting to lay the groundwork by calling for some of the justices to be pulled out, and for some of this other stuff to happen, and including getting rid of the Federal Reserve chair, because he could do that under martial law as well. So it gives him broad authority. It basically makes him a dictator in chief. Okay, and so this is something that you should definitely be thinking of. But every time Trump gets gets thwarted by the courts. Watch the rhetoric that he puts out, and that rhetoric is to inflame support, to rally his base, to justify what he's about to do next. Because if he keeps saying, well, the courts keep saying, we know I'm trying to get rid of these people, you guys want them gone, we all want them gone, me, I want them gone too, but we all want them gone, the courts won't let me do it, this is why you elected me, so now I have to suspend the writ of habeas corpus, and I have to put us under martial law so that we can go in there and get all of these guys and get them out, because now we've got the deep state subversion, which may be happening, but this is a lot of a lot of the things that he is already starting to push us towards. So eventually, yes, once we go after them, but what makes this even more scary is that with Doge being under lawsuit by the ACLU, what's happening is they're calling to light that every American's data has been compromised and is being collected by the government, which it already has been. I mean, your social security number, your birth certificate, all that stuff. But instead of being localized, it's now going to be centralized. And what is happening over at the Department of Homeland Security right around the time of the election? They just started talking about doing drone surveillance and looking out there for anybody that could possibly be a dissident. And then what happens is Department of Homeland Security has developed their own AI bot, their own AI whatever, their own AI software that is what they're using it for right now, under the premise of is that this is so that we can track dissidents, and we can track these illegal aliens, until all of a sudden it gets turned on anybody that's no longer loyal to Trump. This is going to call on anybody that is not loyal to Trump. And if you're not going to be loyal to Trump, and if you're not going to worship Trump, because this also gives him the right to do the same thing that Zelensky is doing, which is to suspend elections. And for how long will he suspend election? Because he thinks everybody loves him. Because after being in Washington, D.C., I will tell you the one thing that makes all these politicians sick is that the people around them are too busy telling them that they're great, that it becomes an emperor with no clothes situation. Okay, so hey, if you guys want to see this uncensored and you want to see the full story, it took me about an hour to get it out and to talk. It's a live stream, but if you want to see that, you're going to have to come over and get a membership on Patreon. There's free memberships, and then there's paid memberships. Privacy starts behind the paywall. Everything else that's in the public, but it's still on Patreon. So if you want to follow this channel, make sure you stay with me even if I get deplatformed, or if you want to hear the uncensored stuff, I have to keep it over there on Patreon so that I don't upset YouTube, get strikes, and have to go through digital re-education again, because I've already been through it once because I made a mistake on YouTube. So for those of you that would like to come over there, come on over to Patreon. Also consider a membership if you want to support the channel. Thanks for being here, guys. I will see you in the next one.